which is an acronym which means Notices of Something to Airmen. I don't know what the T is. I now call up H.R. 1775, asking unanimous consent to discharge Subcommittee on Aviation from further consideration of H.R. 1775 and that be considered as read and open to amendment at any point. Without objection, so ordered. This legislation was introduced by the gentleman, and recognize myself. This was introduced by a gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Stauber. H.R. 1775 will create an important task force to review existing methods for presenting notices to airmen, or NOTAMs, to pilots. NOTAMs provide pilots with essential real-time information regarding abnormalities or issues in the national airspace. While pilots are required to review all NOTAMs before flight, there has been concern about the lengthiness and completeness of critical information contained in NOTAMs and how the information is displayed and organized for pilots. Under H.R. 1775, the task force will determine best practices for organizing, presenting flight operations information to pilots in the air, the most optimal manner, and making recommendations to improve the presentation of NOTAM information. I expect the task force established under H.R. 1775 will lead to good work, recommendations that will improve aviation safety. I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting the bill. What's, okay, all right. I was going to do that, but okay. I would now recognize the ranking member, Mr. Graves, for a statement.
Thank you, Chairman DeFazio. And I want to thank Mr. Stauber and Mr. Desaulnier for introducing this very important bill. H.R. 1775 improves aviation safety by requiring the FAA to establish a task force to review and make recommendations to improve the presentation of NOTAMs, notices to airmen. On July 7, 2017, there was an Air Canada flight that was approaching San Francisco International Airport that nearly landed on a crowded taxiway with 4 other airplanes waiting there to take off. The crew mistook the taxiway for a cleared runway because the parallel runway was closed at the time. So the NTSB investigation later found that the information about the closed runway was buried on page 8 of a 27-page list of San Francisco NOTAMs. Information on NOTAMs, especially those that are critical to safely operating in and around busy airports, it needs to be better prioritized, and this bill is obviously going to improve that. As a professional pilot, I know how important NOTAMs are. This has been a problem for a while, and it's critical that we have a better prioritization system and make it easier at least to wade through the myriad of NOTAMs that sometimes you get at some airports. This is why I support H.R. 1775 and urge a yes vote today, and I yield back the balance.
Thank you, gentlemen. I would now recognize the subcommittee chair, Mr. Larson from Washington State. Okay, he doesn't want to speak. How about the ranking member of the subcommittee, the other Graves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very quickly, as Ranking Member Graves, my father, noted, this is a result of an NTSB recommendation related to a July 2017 near miss by a Canadian Air Canada flight at San Francisco International Airport, where the plane nearly came in and landed on top of several planes loaded with passengers at San Francisco International. It was determined as a result of the NTSB investigation that that the NOTAM was not properly reviewed by the pilots, which resulted in the error. So this, again, recommendation of NTSB to create a task force to look at how we can better ensure the communication of the NOTAMs to pilots and avoid disasters in the future. A bipartisan bill, and I urge adoption.
I thank the gentleman. Are any other member wish to be recognized to speak? Yes.
Thank you, Chair DeFazio and Ranking Member Graves. Pete Stauber, Minnesota 8. I appreciate the consideration of this important legislation that I worked on with my colleague, Congressman Desaulnier from California. Notice to airmen or NOTAMs are extremely important to safety in our skies. NOTAMs are critical as they relay safety information to pilots that allow them to understand the possible hazards and conditions of airports and runways before actually getting to the destination airport. The current system simply is not working as well as it should. For example, there is often important safety information buried in reports that could be several inches thick, 25, 30 pages. And this bill creates a task force at the FAA with important input from safety experts and industry professionals to address what changes need to be made to NOTAMs to make air travel even safer than it is. I urge my colleagues to support this bipartisan bill. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
I thank the gentleman for his comments and his work on this legislation. Any other members wish to be recognized? Seeing none? What? Oh, I didn't thought you were just.
I'll be brief, I promise.
Okay, all right.
I
Gentleman
just-
from
I-
California.
I just want to reiterate, it's been a pleasure working with you, and the importance of this, having worked extensively on the near miss at SFO with FAA and with NTSB. I think the crucial quote in all of this was from the chair of NTSB, where he said, "These are garbage and they need to be fixed." So I would say that's a succinct way of saying I hope you all support it.
I thank the gentleman for his colorful remarks, which are very much to the point of how we want to simplify. Let's get the important information up the top. It's just kind of like when Boeing didn't put in the manual that there was a new automated system on the plane. We really want to let people know what's going on. So with that, any amendments? No amendments? Okay, if there are none, questions on the adoption and favorably reporting H.R. 1775 to the House of Representatives. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Nay. Okay, the ayes have it. Bill's approved and reported favorably to the House.